Hey there folks, and welcome to an evening with the Salty Seaman, an Ask Me Anything, answering questions by you, my loyal and often very funny viewers. Let's see what people have to ask me. Old Geezer says, I'm curious to what is your favorite Liberty port and why? Tough question. I've been to so many, and there's a lot of them I have a lot of fun with. Hong Kong, just consistency, because I've been there so many times, and it was never not fun. It was never not a good place to go. Brisbane, Australia, I've been there 3 times, and probably what I'd usually say is my favorite. What a great town. Australia in general, they're just the best people, and when you're out on deployment and you go to these different countries, and most of them aren't terrible. I mean, some aren't great, but Australia is always warm and friendly and just a great place to go. Northern Chev replied to him saying, "What exactly is a Liberty port?" Well, when you're on a ship and you go out on deployment, sometimes you need a little R&R, rest and relaxation. So while you're out doing military stuff, you'll take a little break and pull into a nearby country and a city port somewhere, and you get a couple days off, minus your duty day. As opposed to also there's called working ports, which is you pull into the country, but you're still working and maybe get a little bit of time off. Or the worst, you pull in somewhere and you're not allowed to leave at all because of reasons. And there's a lot of different reasons, but generally here we're talking about Liberty ports, which is, hey, we're in Sydney, Australia, go have fun, come back for your duty day kind of places. So Hong Kong, Brisbane, somewhere in that. Gary Sims, any good stories regarding enlisted person winning a small or humorous victory over an officer who may have been a bit of a bully or enjoyed their rank too much? I thought about this and I was trying to think of something similar. Like, it sounds like a plot out of a movie, but yeah, there was one time, very minor but kind of funny. We had this officer on my first boat, Lieutenant Owen. He was a bit of a jerk. He was the operations officer. He was also wasn't like the most squared away officer at all times. He was out of rags, a little overweight, and he was kind of a dick. We do duty section turnover on the weekends, and he would be like one of those command duty officers that would make everyone muster up in formation for inspection, make sure everyone's ready for the workday. And you think of a ship full of couple hundred, 300, 400, 500, whatever, very junior guys who, decided to go have fun on a Friday night before their duty day. Not the smartest thing to do, but it's what young people do. And he was looking for haircut infractions or people with dirty uniforms who didn't shave. And well, apparently he was in a hurry himself this morning, and he himself hadn't shaved. So he's inspecting people and calling out their problems and just being his normal dickish self. And he asked one guy who hadn't shaved, he got his face, said, "Do you shave today?" And he just probably hung over, not thinking any better, just kind of asked, "Well, did you?" And sure enough, if you looked at him, looked like he hadn't shaved himself. So that was kind of funny. I think he just ended up walking away and told the ACDO to take charge. So yeah, that's about the only one I can think of. 8 Pages asks, have you had any experience working with navies of other nations? What differences do you see? Yeah, worked with quite a few navies and marines and armies from different nations. The Australians, cool people. Cambodian Marines, which I thought were pretty badass little guys. Worked with the Indian Marines, South Korea Marines and Navy. A lot. We used to do yearly exercise on my first ship with them, so I worked with them a lot. And everyone seems to be, fairly similar. Oh, Canadian Marines were pretty funny guys. They did wreck my, the berthing we put them in was the one my department owned, and they fucking wrecked the head. But otherwise, they were pretty cool guys. God, I'm sure there's a few other Japanese Navy a bunch of times. I've even been on their ship for a little bit. Yeah, they're pretty similar. Like, it's just different, slightly different uniforms and different language often. But you know, we all kind of end up being kind of feeling like a bit of a brotherhood just because we all kind of do the same stuff, just in a different country. I've been there. J. Campbell 03 says, I was in the Army from 1990 to 1998. I always heard how much better the Navy and Air Force chow was. I can confirm Army chow is palatable, but right down disgusting. Blah, blah, blah. As a KP duty. You do talk about, you know, chow. Ship chow kind of sucks. It just does. 3 ships I was stationed on, I can't say any of them were like, oh my god, the greatest. The carrier actually probably had the best, even over the flagship. You know, I was never too hot on the Blue Ridge's food. The New Orleans, definitely not. Our off-ship, our base chow halls, mess halls are really good. I think the Navy does a really good job. Yokosuka's, Bangers, a few others I've been to, Meridian, Mississippi, they're all pretty good chow halls. I mean, you can't go wrong with what you're getting. Definitely better than the Marine chow halls are garbage. I mean, they're terrible. I've never been to one that I liked at all. I went to the Army's a couple times on Fort Meade. That's where my school is for my job, and yeah, I wasn't very impressed with theirs either. I haven't been to many Air Force ones, but I've heard they're really good. They're supposed to be the best, you know, or neck and neck with the Navy in terms of shore chow halls. What do you know about AECF? This is from Edge Nape. I'm going to be going on as one, and I know other than I'll be an ET or an FC. I guess that's the Common Core for electronics guys. So ETFCs, just says, I have no clue what they do. You know, electronics. You work in, means you're probably a pretty smart cookie. You're going to go to a very long school, and you're going to get out, come to the fleet as an E4. Push button is what they're going to be called. And you work on electronics. Not electricians, electronics. You work. So pretty sweet deal if you got the brains for it. Good way to get a job afterwards because if you want to stay in that field, because you've got a pretty good skill there. Schools are pretty long. I think overall you might be doing almost a year and a half to 2 years from your basic core school to whatever your specialty is. And yeah, they're usually considered fairly tweakers. You know, just kind of the smarties who got, you know, E4 straight out of school. You get big bonuses all the time. They want to keep you in. So there's a bit of jealousy in the services over those guys. But yeah, it's a important and critical job, and you know, it's, I think, a pretty good deal. I think I have a hernia and I'm going to get it checked out tomorrow. If it was fixed, would I still be able to join the Navy? From Tommy Firestone. As far as I know, I don't remember hearing about a hernia being a disqualifying thing, but I'm not a medical guy. Better a recruiter to ask, or they could find out better, because there are so many weird little things about pre-existing conditions joining the military. Like a broken bone, any kind of broken bone you had that you ever had to get pins and screws, I know is a fucking pain in the ass, because military just doesn't want to take that on. I've never heard anything about a hernia though. So I think you're fine, but don't take my word for it. IMDb bites. Duty and problems of changing from combat to support ships. My brother got squirrely screwed on a support ship after 14 years of excellent ratings on a destroyer. Different tempo, yeah. I see. I don't know your story of your brother. I mean, that could just be a personnel issue, just personality conflicts. Change of jobs. You go into a supply ship from, you know, something that was a little more high speed, low drag. You know, maybe the fighting ship overlooked some of his lesser stellar qualities because he was good at, you know, getting missiles and, you know, combat stuff off. And now that he's in more of a, you know, less combat environment, and like people are kind of looking at him a little closer, I could guess something like that. But I don't know. Your brother could be a totally cool guy, and you know, maybe he just got a shitty chain of command. Who knows? Funny things. What was your impression of the nuke program and the people in it? Nuclear program is again like the electronics program, and you know, it's full of a lot of smart people that go to a really long school and they go work on nuclear carriers and subs and a few other nuclear destroyers out there, and they're generally looked at as, I say the stereotype is, super smart people with no common sense. They're a bunch of geeks. They're weird. You know, they're the guys who played D&D in high school and read comic books. That was me too. So, you know, I knew a lot of them on the carrier. And and the stereotype is fairly true. I met a few that weren't. You know, one guy who was kind of a frat jock, and I was a little surprised he was an nuke. You know, he actually used to hang out in my shop all the time. I think getting away from the other nukes he just didn't get along with because of that reason. Yeah, they're kind of viewed as super smart, but lacking in common sense and street smarts, I guess. But good work, man. I mean, you definitely have a job for life if you get through that training. But it's hard. Their school is super hard. Like, I think only the defense language is harder than nuke school for enlisted people. What's your all-time favorite book and Pantera song? Dawn Bringer. All-time favorite book, probably be something by Stephen King. Talked about Dark Tower on here. Wizard and Glass, I absolutely love. I think that's not my favorite book. It's one of my favorite books. Terry Pratchett's The Lost Continent is one of the funniest books I ever read. I've probably read that book 4 times. You know, just over and over again. Probably one of those 2 books. Favorite Pantera song? I don't know if there's one particular song. My favorite album is The Great Southern Trendkill. I love that album beginning to end. I know it's not as popular as Vulgar or some of the other people's favorite Pantera albums. I absolutely love that album. Floods, Suicide Note, War Nerve, Underground in America, any of those probably. What's your top 3? Liberty Ports, I already mentioned Hong Kong and Brisbane. I don't know, Phuket, Thailand's great. Pearl Harbor, had a lot of fun there. Panama was pretty fun. I wish I had more time there. So, but I've already answered that pretty much. What did you do for your cross the line ceremony? Didn't do anything. I mean, we didn't. When I went through it, there was no talent show or anything on my first 2 ships. I only saw that on my 3rd. You know, I think we sang. At one point, we were during the cross the line ceremony singing "Dancing Queen" while pretending to row a boat. That's one thing I remember. I remember eating a bottle of hot sauce. That kind of sucked. But it wasn't as bad. Like, Blue Ridge is kind of weak. Like, I went to other ships, I was surprised like it was a little more hardcore. But being the flagship, I guess, I think I got off a little easy. Why did you join the Navy? To get the fuck out of Arkansas. Straight up. My family moved to Arkansas in high school and I fucking hated it. It was in the middle of the country, nothing, bumpkin, rural bullshit. I was joined the Navy and said, get me furthest point away from Japan, from Arkansas, and they sent me to Japan. It was pretty cool because everyone else in their training school was asking for, on their dream sheets, because you can't really pick where you go your first time, but everyone else was asking for places close to home. I said, nope, what's the opposite? They said, how's Japan? I'm like, hell yeah, send me to Japan. And I went to the Blue Ridge and was stationed in Japan, and I loved it. What was your rate? I was originally a yeoman. I did yeoman for 6 years. I left the service for a little while, came back in as a journalist, JO. That eventually became MC, mass communication specialist. So journalism, media, that's what I did for most of my career, about 14 years. What's your duty stations? So Japan on the USS Blue Ridge. I was in Lemoore, worked at the schoolhouse as admin. It's an aviation mechanic schoolhouse. And I came back in, I was on the USS John C. Stennis as a journalist. I was at Navy recruiting in Millington, Tennessee as a magazine editor. I was the public affairs officer for the USS New Orleans out of San Diego after that. And then I was a production and operations manager at AFN Iwakuni, Marine base in Japan. Again, asking favorite ports. Liberty stories. A couple people asking for funny Liberty stories. God, I just don't even want to say, because my wife watches these on occasion. But one of my craziest ones is just me and my friend Jay was out, and we had some ladies, and it was 11:30, and we had to be back by the ship by 12, and where we were wasn't exactly 2 minutes from the ship. So we went and got a hotel, and it basically became less about the fun of interacting with a woman, you want to say, versus beating the clock. And, you know, at one point, I have a naked Jay banging on my hotel door saying, we gotta go, we gotta go. It was like 11:52. You know, by the time we got to the taxi to the hotel, checked in, got to the room, I mean, it was like 30 seconds tops before we had to turn around and do it all over again, catch a cab back to the ship. I think we actually got there like 12:03, and, you know, kind of got lucky we knew the watch, and he just kind of you know, before the Master at Arms come up here and start collecting IDs, because luckily they were late showing up. You know, they were running us onto the ship, and the guy signed us in the petty officer of the watch. Doug Kettleson, good guy if you're watching Doug. That's, you know, just dumb young guys doing a really dumb thing, and just, but it's funny because we got away with it, you know, and just the thing of beating the clock. And I left out some more unsavory details because, you know. Speaking of unsavory, can you shit on my chest? That was from my friend John, who's in the Marine Corps. Yeah, sure. Next time you're on town on leave, let's go out again, and we'll see where the night takes us, John. Question: appreciate greatly if you make a video to answer about Undez bosun's mates. I'm a U.S. Navy sailor, 1775. Looks like a guy going in. Tough work. You know, my recruiter told me to not go Undez, pick a rate. A lot of people will tell you, you know, hey, it's the best way to go because then you can choose whatever you want to do. And most people I know that go Undez don't end up doing anything else. They end up, when they go for E4, they end up picking bosun's mate because that's the job they know. They've been doing it for 2 years or so. Some do. Some are determined to get out of deck. But basic deck or you know, other Undez engineering, firemen are on the aviation deck, Airedale. I mean, you're going to be in those career fields. But yeah, it's hard work. It's, you know, you're a deckhand. You're a basic deck ape. It ain't easy. It's chipping paint and moving chains and anchors and driving the ship and standing watches, and it's a rough life. So if you're cool with that, be cool with it. But yeah, not something I wouldn't have done. Closest I get, I was the deck yeoman for 6 months, and you know, I saw what those guys did a little more up hand. Even though you're on a ship, you always see it, but I was like, yeah, not for me. You know, much love to my bosun's mates out there, though. Are you a shellback or a WOG from 47's KCR? I'm, as I mentioned earlier, yeah, I'm a shellback. I got it March 1997. There's a guy with a long list of questions. I think some of these will be answered. Let me go over. What countries have you been? I mentioned already Japan. I was stationed in Japan 6 years. I've also been there in duty ports. For the Navy, I've been Canada, Mexico. Start on this side, yeah. Peru, Panama, Colombia. East, I went to South Korea, Malaysia, Indonesia, Australia, Fiji. Middle East, I've been to the UAE, Qatar, Jordan. I can't remember off the top of my head. Cambodia, Thailand, a ton of stuff. Especially on my first ship, Admiral's flagship. I went so many places. I know I'm probably leaving off a bunch. In person that I haven't been, that I went that I haven't. The Navy didn't take me. No, yeah, I've been to, you know, I've traveled for, you know, my personal purposes to Canada, Mexico, but I went there also as Liberty ports. I went to the Caribbean once on my honeymoon. It's one place I've been on my own at the Navy. I didn't go in the Navy. Which ports and cities do you like? I already mentioned that. Why I joined the Navy. I've talked to the nation's service members. Yes, talked about that. Most awesome experience. I don't know. My time on the Stennis, I think, just overall, like, I just got to do a lot of cool stuff and support the guys out there making it happen, being a journalist and taking pictures and writing their stories. Pretty awesome experiences. We did volunteer work for Katrina down in South Mississippi, New Orleans area. That was really rewarding and good experience. Getting to go on the Japanese destroyer for a couple days was a really great experience. It's hard to say. So thank you, Kitarion. And last question, how long did you serve in the Navy? I served 20 years. I got out after 6 for about 6 months, had a job, got laid off, and decided I wanted to come back in. I missed it anyway. And so I did it for 20 years. I'm retired, I get a pension, it's pretty cool. And now I go to college, I'm I'm a freelance journalist, and I do this thing on YouTube. So that's about it. Thanks for all your questions. Hope we gave you a little insight to who the Salty Seaman is. And I'll catch you guys later. Thank you. Peace.